Hello, second grade scholars. Welcome to Read Aloud with me, Miss Taylor. We are reading chapter 16. Yes, chapter 16 of the City of Ember, and it is called The Singing. And we read the first part of this chapter a few days ago, and Lena gets caught by the guards and brought before the mayor. And the mayor is sort of scolding Lena, telling her that she's a troublemaker and that she should just trust him, that he is doing what's best for the city of Ember, which we know is not true. And then he tells Lena he's going to put her in the prison room. And I was thinking, I wonder if the prison room is kind of like Miss Lund's dungeon. You don't want to go there. There's rats and things. But just as Lena was looking for a way to escape, because the mayor was talking about putting her in the prison room, then the lights went out. The lights went out. There was no flicker this time, just sudden, complete darkness. It was fortunate that Lena had already planned her move and knew exactly which way to go. She leapt up, knocking over the chair. With her arm, she made a wide swipe and knocked over the table next to the chair as well. The furniture thumping to the floor, the teapot shattering, and the mayor's enraged shouts made a clamor that covered the sound of her footsteps as she dashed to the stairway door. Was it unlocked? She reached for the knob. Grunts and squeaks told her that the mayor was struggling to rise from his chair. She turned the knob and pulled, and the door sprang open. She closed the door behind her and leapt upward 2 steps at a time. Even in the pitch dark, she could climb stairs. In the room, the bell clanged, and the mayor bellowed, like, "Hey, she got away! Where's my guard?" When she got to the first landing, she heard the guards shouting. There was a crash. Someone must have fallen over the toppled chair or table. "Where is she?" someone yelled. "Must have run out the door." Did they know which door? She didn't hear footsteps behind her. If she could make it to the roof, and if from the roof she could jump to the roof of the prison room and from there to the street, then maybe she could escape. Her lungs were on fire now. Her breath was burning her throat, but she climbed without stopping, and when she came to the top, she burst through the door to the roof and ran out. So now she's on the roof. And that was when the lights came back on. It was as if the blackout had been arranged especially for her. Because the lights went out, she was able to escape, and now she's on the roof and the lights are back on. I'm so lucky, she thought, so extremely lucky. Ahead of her was the clock tower. She went around to the other side of it. No dancing on the roof this time. Remember last time she was dancing on the roof? A low wall ran along the edge of the building. Lena approached it cautiously and peered out over the swarm of people assembling in Harkin Square. Directly below her was the entrance of the gathering hall, and as she watched, 2 guards dashed out the door and down the steps. Good, they had gone the wrong way. They must think she'd escaped into the crowd. For the moment, she was safe. The clock in the tower began to chime. 3 great booms rang out. It was time for the singing to begin. Lena gazed down at the people of Ember, gathered to sing their songs. They stood so close together that she could only see their faces, which were lifted up toward the sky, with the hard, bright lights shining down on them. They were silent, waiting for the songmaster to appear on the gathering hall steps. There was a strange hush, as if the city were holding its breath. Of the whole Ember year, Lena thought, this hush before the singing was one of the most exciting moments. She remembered other years when she had stood with her parents, too short to see the songmaster's signal, too short to see anything but people's backs and legs, and waited for the first note to thunder out. She felt her heart move at that moment every year. The sound would rise in waves around her like water, almost as if it could lift her off the ground. It's kind of a neat memory. Now suddenly the moment came again. From hundreds of voices rose the first notes of the song of the city, deep and strong. She felt as she had all the years before, a quivering inside, as though a string under her ribs had been plucked, and a rush of joy and sadness mixed together. So when she hears this song, it kind of stirs her heart. It makes her feel something deep inside. Like maybe you have a song like that, scholars. When you hear it, just kind of fills you with warmth or joy or maybe even sadness. The deep rumbling chords of the song filled Harkin Square. Lena felt that she might step off the edge of the building and walk across the air. It seemed so solid with sound. So the sound is just filling the whole space. The song of the city was long. There were verses about streets of light and walls of stone, about citizens with sturdy hearts, about stored abundance never ending. Not true, Lena thought. But at last, the song of the city wound down to its end. The singers held the final note, which grew softer and softer, and then there was silence again. Lena looked out at the lighted streets spreading away in every direction, the streets she knew so well. She loved her city, worn out and crumbling though it was. She looked up at the clock. 10 minutes after 3. Dune would be getting ready to leave for the pipeworks. She didn't know whether he'd seen her being captured. If he had, he would be wondering if she'd been locked in the prison room. He'd be wondering if he should try to rescue her, or if he should go down to the river by himself. Oh, she's thinking about Dune and what are we going to do now? And maybe he saw me getting captured, or maybe he didn't. She should be hurrying to join him, but a sadness held her back, like a heavy stone in her chest. She bent her face into the palms of her hands and pressed hard against her closed eyes. How could she go away from Ember and leave Poppy behind? Because if she went, she must leave Poppy behind, mustn't she? How could she take her on a journey of such danger? So she knows she's kind of excited to try to escape and get out of Ember, but she's like, how can I leave Poppy, my little sister? The song of the river startled her when it began, the men's voices low and rolling, swelling with power, and then the women's voices coming in above with a complicated melody that seemed to fight the current. Lena listened, unable to move. The song of the river made her uneasy, it always had. With its rolling, relentless rhythm, it seemed to urge her onward, saying, go down, go away, go now. The more she listened, the more she felt something like the motion of the river in her stomach, a churning, sickening feeling. Then came the song of darkness, the last of the 3 songs, and the one most filled with longing and majesty. The soul of Ember was in this song. Its tremendous chords held all the sorrow and all the strength of the people of the city. The song reached its climax. Darkness like an endless night, sang the hundreds of voices, so powerfully the air seemed to shiver. And at that moment, the lights once more went out. The lights went out again. The voices faltered, but only for an instant. Then they rose again. In the darkness, stronger even than before. Wow. Can you imagine? It's all dark. And then like people like get kind of quiet with their singing and then they start singing again and now it's louder. Wow, this is a very powerful image. Are you kind of visualizing, imagining what that would have felt like and looked like? Lena sang too. She stood up and sang with all her might into the deep, solid blackness. The last notes echoed and faded into a terrible silence. Lena stood utterly still. Will it end like this? She thought. At the finish of the last song, she felt the cold stone of the clock tower behind her back. She waited. She's like, is this it? Are the lights just not going to come on again? That would be such a scary feeling. Then an idea came to her that made her skin prickle. What if she were to shout into the silence right now? Now it's totally silent and dark. What if she were to shout, and tell people what her and Dune had found? The way out of Ember. What if she were to say, listen, people, we've found the way out of Ember. It's the river. We have to go on the river. She could announce the astounding news, just as she and Dune had planned to do, and then what would happen? Would the guards rush to the roof and seize her? Would they grab her and take her to the prison room? Would the people in the square think her news was just a child's wishful thinking? Or would they listen and be saved? She could feel the words pushing upward in her throat. She wanted so much to say them. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. But before she could speak, a rumble of voices arose below. Someone shouted, "Don't move!" And someone else shrieked. The rumble rose to a roar, and then cries flew into the darkness from everywhere. The crowd was erupting into panic. So now people are starting to panic and, "Hey, don't move! Oh, don't push me!" and shouting. And there was no hope of being heard now. So now, even if she did want to shout, it's like too loud. All the people are kind of starting to panic. Lena clutched the edge of the clock tower as if the tumult below might cause her to fall. She strained her eyes against the darkness. Without light, she could go nowhere. "Lights, come back on," she prayed. "Come back on." Then she saw something. At first, she thought her eyes were tricking her. She closed them tightly and opened them again. It was still there. A tiny point of light, moving. As she watched, it moved along slowly in a straight line. Then it turned and moved in a straight line again. Was it on River Road? She couldn't tell. But suddenly she knew what it was. It was Dune with a candle. Dune going toward the pipeworks in the dark, and she wanted to go too. She could feel it all through her, the urge to run and meet him and find the way out of Ember to the new place. She listened to the shouts and wails of the terrified people in the square below. She thought of Mrs. Murdo down there in the dark, being bumped and pushed with her arms wrapped tightly around Poppy, trying to protect her. And all at once everything seemed clear. Lena knew what she would do, if only the lights would come back on. If only this was not the very last blackout in the history of Ember. Watching the tiny light following its steady course, she made a wish with the whole force of her heart and mind. Then the floodlights flickered. There was a great cry of hope from the crowd, and the lights came on and stayed on. Lena ran to the back edge of the roof, dropped easily down onto the roof of the prison room, and seeing no guards in the crowd that was now streaming into the street, she jumped from there to the ground and joined the throng of people. She made her way down Greystone Street, going at the same pace as everyone else so she wouldn't stand out. When she came to the trash can enclosure behind the gathering hall, she squatted down and hid. Her heart was beating fast, but she felt strong and purposeful now. She had her plan. As soon as she spotted Mrs. Murdo and Poppy on their way home, she'd put it into action. That is the end of the chapter. I wonder what her plan is. So she's planning when she sees Mrs. Murdo and Poppy go by, she's going to put her plan into action. Oh, the next chapter is called Away. What do you think? This is getting so exciting. All right, scholars, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you again soon.